Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Lightship Swiftsure. As you know, we're part of Northwest Seaport, and we're welcoming you to our online virtual gala. We're having an online gala because we couldn't have you on the boats with us this year. We would have loved to have you for our classic workboat show in May. Would love to have had you on board for our happy hours over the summer, but as you know, none of that was able to happen. So now I'm on board, I'm cold. Hopefully you're at home, warm, but enjoying some of what we have to share with you about Northwest Seaport and the programs that we offer and these great ships that we're taking care of. And I'd like to open up with a little bit about the ships and just let you know what the boats are that you are helping with this. And I'm going to bring Saxon Bisbee up. Saxon is our vessel manager, and he's the one responsible for taking care of the boats, and he can just give you a brief rundown of himself and the boats that we take care of.
Thank you, Andy. I'm Saxon. I'm the vessel manager. Thank you for everyone for being here. As vessel manager, essentially I'm in charge of Northwest Seaport's fleet. That's the operations as well as the restoration of our 3 ships. So we have 3 vessels down here at South Lake Union. The Arthur Foss tugboat, which is built in 1889. It's probably the oldest of its kind in the world now. We're on board the lightship number 83 Swiftsure, built in 1904, definitely the oldest lightship in the United States. A lightship is a floating lighthouse, for those of you who don't know. And our 3rd vessel is the halibut schooner Tordenskjold. That's a fishing boat built locally here in 1911. Was fishing in the Bering Sea until 2012. Now, 2 of these ships are National Historic Landmarks, National Historic Sites. So a lot of what we do is preserve that heritage, the history, and the skills that goes with it for future generations. So that's a big part of what I do here.
Great. Thank you, Saxon. I don't know if you can see much of the deck, but we've got a gorgeous deck here on the lightship, and also, we've got restoration projects going on. Saxon is very busy taking care of these tremendous, very large-scale artifacts that are so important to our maritime heritage. So some of the other things that your support this evening lets us do is we do educational programs. We have young people on board, Mariner for a Day kind of programs where they can go in the engine room of the Arthur Foss and see a diesel engine up close. They can go on Tordenskjold and learn a little bit about what fishing is all about, commercial fishing. And they can work here on the lightship, learn some of the trades that are necessary to keep our maritime fleet, not just our maritime fleet, but Seattle's maritime fleet, the commercial maritime activity, alive and active, and we play an important role in doing that. In addition, we do general educational programs. We have a tugboat story time once a month. We had been having tugboat story time twice a month, where we bring young people, preschoolers down onto the Arthur Foss and hear stories about tugs and tugboating in the sea, and we really, get them engaged in our maritime heritage at a very young age. We also do a classic workboat show in the spring where we bring classic workboats, classic loosely defined. We've actually had some fairly modern U.S. Coast Guard vessels join us. But come here where people can get on board and they can get their hands on these boats that most people just see cruising out in Elliott Bay or maybe from a distance here on Lake Union. So those are some of the things that we do to engage the community and support our maritime heritage. And one of the other things that we do that has just been a tremendous success is our monthly shanty sings and music program, which are led by Wayne Paulson and Gene Geiger. And that program, it went online when COVID happened and has been successful. We've had over 70 people every month coming online together to build community and to sing shanties, some from as far away as Denmark. And to give you a taste of that and to get things started tonight, I'm going to hand it off to Wayne and Gene to lead us in a shanty.
Okay, it's us.
Okay.
Wayne and Gene, it's all yours.
Wayne and I'm Jean.
Yeah, so here's a couple shanties. And these are tailored to our Northwest Seaport. This is the Arthur Foss song, and here we go. 100 years is a very long time. Oh, I-oh. 100 years is a very long time. 100 years ago, in 1889. Oh, I-oh. A tug was built so strong and fine 100 years ago. In Portland town her keel was laid. Oh, the Tugwalawa was her name 100 years ago. At Columbia Bar she towed the ships. Oh, and made Alaskan gold rush trips 100 years ago. A towing logs all up and down. Oh, to the mills around the Puget Sound 100 years ago. When she was burned and seemed a loss. Oh, was so rebuilt the Arthur Foss 100 years ago. In Tugboat Annie when Hollywood came. Oh, the Tug Narcissus was her name 100 years ago. From steam to diesel in 34. Oh, in 41 she was caught by the war 100 years ago. The last American to sail away. Oh, from Wake Island in December's gray 100 years ago. They took her name for Super Tug. Oh, renamed Theodore, still towing logs 100 years ago. Retired and given back her name. Oh, to Northwest Seaport home she came 100 years ago. For 100 years her story's told. Oh, through the wind and the rain and the sea so cold 100 years ago. Floating now she can be found. Oh, she's a proud old lady of Puget Sound 100 years ago. 100 years is a very long time. Oh, 131 years is a very long time. 100 years ago. So that was written in 1989 for the state centennial, which was also the centennial of the tugboat Arthur Foss. It was written by two Northwest Seaport collaborators, Bob Cotta and Mary Ide Woodman. So we're going to have another shanty. This was an Outward Bound shanty that Jean's going to sing.
I'll sing you a song, a good song of the sea.
Away, Rio.
I'll sing it to you if you sing it too with me, and we're bound for the Rio Grande, and it's away, love, away. Away, Rio, so fare thee well, my pretty young girls, and we're bound for the Rio Grande. So man the good capstan and run her around. Away, Rio, we'll haul up the anchor to this jolly sound, and we're bound for the Rio Grande, and it's away, love, away. Away, Rio, so fare thee well, my pretty young girls, and we're bound for the Rio Grande. Have you ever been down to Puget Sound? Away, Rio, it's there that the finest fleet can be found, and we're bound for the Rio Grande, and it's away, love, away. Away, Rio, so fare thee well, my pretty young girls, and we're bound for the Rio Grande. Have you ever been on the Arthur Foss? Away, Rio, she's the oldest tugboat and she's the boss, and we're bound for the Rio Grande, and it's away, love, away. Away, Rio, so fare thee well, my pretty young girls, and we're bound for the Rio Grande. Have you ever been on the Tartan Shoal?
Away, Rio,
the halibut schooner is a sight to behold, and we're bound for the Rio Grande, and it's away, love, away. Away, Rio, so fare thee well, my pretty young girls, and we're bound for the Rio Grande. Well, the swift shore lightship 83.
away, Rio,
she's burning bright, the sentinel of the sea, and we're bound for the Rio Grande, and it's away, love, away. Away, Rio, so fare thee well, my pretty young girls, and we're bound for the Rio Grande. Well, the anchor's away and the sails they are set.
Away, Rio!
And the Seattle folks will never forget, and we're bound for the Rio Grande, and it's away, love, away, away, Rio. So fare thee well, my pretty young girls, and we're bound for the Rio Grande, and it's away, love, away, away, Rio. So fare thee well, my pretty young girls, and we're bound for the Rio Grande.
So those are two examples of the songs that we sing during our shanty sings that happen on the second Friday of every month. Until COVID, we were singing aboard the V5 and the Arthur Foss throughout the year, but we have gone virtual, and we still do our thing, 8 o'clock, second Friday of the month. Go to northwestseaport.org, look at the music page to find out how to sign up and to get on the mailing list so that you can get the Zoom link. It's all free, and we have a great time. We have people from Europe, from across the United States, from Canada, and right here from Seattle singing in. It's a great event. Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Wayne and Jean, and I imagine it's probably a little warmer there in the Rio Grande. But we're here in Seattle, and we're raising money tonight for Northwest Seaport and all the great programs we put on for the community, including our Shanty Sing. Now, one of the things that I want you to know about is you're getting ready to bid on the auction items that are the great auction items that are out there, and you know we're going to do a raise the paddle. But when you're doing that, keep in mind we have one board member who has a very special announcement for us tonight. Joe Shickich has been on the board longer than anyone else. He's been on the board, I can't remember how long, but he'll tell you. And he's been a great asset and really helpful to Northwest Seaport. And I'm going to let him tell you his story. Here is Joe Shickich.
Hello, my name's Joe Shickich. I am the most senior of the board members of Northwest Seaport. I've been on the board for almost 30 years. Let me tell you how I got there. I'm an attorney. And about 30 years ago, Kate Bullitt, who was one of the founders of the organization, when she had been a board member for about 30 years, asked me to do a pro bono project for Northwest Seaport. And I did the project and I got hooked. It is a great organization with a wonderful tie to the history of the Northwest and especially the maritime history of the Northwest. I have dedicated many hours and a number of dollars over the last 30 years to Northwest Seaport, and I ask you tonight to do the same. Please make a donation. My wife Barbara and I will match the first $10,000 dollar for dollar, and I hope you'll make a donation. And hey, the ships in our fleet, they were old ships during the last pandemic 100 years ago, and they're still here today thanks to Northwest Seaport, and I hope thanks to your contributions. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe, for that generous and your great contributions, everything you've done for Northwest Seaport. And for everyone out there, I would like to propose a toast to Joe Shickich and his generous donation and to lots of fundraising tonight. Here's to Joe and all of you. I hope as tasty as that. We're now, we've got some great support, and Jackie Tabor is a jazz musician in Seattle. She's played at Benaroya Hall. She's played all over the place, and she's been gracious enough to give us a couple of songs to play for you tonight to just get you warmed up and get you engaged in what we're trying to do here. So with that, here's Jackie Tabor.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Northwest Seaport fundraiser. We are here to not only raise funds, but raise awareness of maritime history. My name is Jacqueline Tabor, and I am joined with the illustrious Marina Albera on piano. I hope you enjoy our rendition of I Cover the Waterfront and Night and Day. Way in the city where it hurts and marks, I'm standing alone by the desolate docks in the steel and the chill the great unknown. My heart has an ache, it's as heavy as snow, with the dawn hurrying on. Make it light, I cover the waterfront in search of my love, and I'm wondering when he's coming back to me. Oh, I cover the waterfront in search of my love, and I'm covered by the starlit skies above. Here am I, patiently waiting, hoping and longing, know how I yearn. Where are you? Are you forgetting? Will you remember? Will you return? I cover the waterfront, I'm watching the sea, and I'm wondering when you're coming back to me. Here am I, patiently waiting, hoping and longing, oh how I yearn. Where are you? Are you forgetting? Will you remember? Will you return? I cover the waterfront, I'm watching the sea, and I'm wondering when you'll come back to me. Oh, yeah.
Jacqueline, for that. That's wonderful to be able to hear you, and for everyone else to hear and experience your talent. This is a great honor for us. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the boats that we have and the restoration work that we do. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of money to keep boats like this that are over 100 years old afloat and actively engaged in the community. The Tordenskjold can get underway, and we need to maintain her systems, and she's a maintenance job, but like any old wooden boat, even maintenance takes a lot of work. The Arthur Foss, we're trying to get her engine started again so that she can get underway occasionally. It's not a traditional or modern vessel by any means. And the Swiftsure, as I mentioned, we spent over $2 million on her restoration, and we continue to go on that. We're not done yet. We've got the deck down. We still need to cork it. Then we need to rebuild the pilot house and the radio shack and restore all of the interiors. All of that work needs your support. And to tell you a little bit more about the Swiftsure story, we've got a video for you. Here's the Swiftsure.
This is the oldest floating lightship in the country right now, and this ship has a wonderful past. She served the country since 1904 as a sentinel of the sea, and there isn't another one like it. So it's important as a historical landmark. And it's also important to the future generations of our children so that they can come on board and see what life at sea was like 100 years ago.
A lightship is something that we put, but we can't build a lighthouse. There's no land there or anything, but we want it there, and so we anchored a lighthouse.
Lightship 83 was built in Camden, New Jersey in 1904. This was preceded the building of the Panama Canal, so they brought these two ships, the 83 and her sister ship, around Cape Horn.
And operated first off the California coast and then moved to San Francisco. It was the San Francisco lightship up until World War II. Put a deck gun on it, anti-aircraft guns, and became a naval vessel. Returned to lightship duty after the war, came north and became the relief ship for the 3 northern stations, including the Swiftsure Bank. This was the turning mark for ships coming into Puget Sound. The entire economy that built the Pacific Northwest was shipping, and those ships all relied on this vessel to be on station outside the entrance to the Strait of Juan de Fuca. It's impressive that those guys were out there in that weather all the time, on station. Talk about diligence. That's what these ships were all about. This is the legacy we're trying to preserve here in the process of rebuilding and preserving the ship.
And it's been a real interesting learning experience having to back up and figure out what people did 100 years ago. There's so many skill sets that are used in putting this ship back together that are not being taught, that are being lost.
Northwest Seaport has established relationships with several schools, the Seattle Central College's Wood Technology Center, Seattle Maritime Academy, and Ballard High School's Marine program. I am trying to get as involved with the Swiftsure as possible with my students because it is a fabulous learning tool.
One of our plans for this ship is to make the lightship into a maritime career center to teach people maritime skills. So not only does this ship have a wonderful past, but we hope that it's going to be useful in aiding people to get involved in the maritime industry in the future.
This is 8 years older than Titanic, and still here with us floating today, and it's a major cornerstone of maritime history here in the Northwest. Obviously, our long-term goal is to restore the ship and have it available here as a floating museum, but the journey getting there is what we really want to focus on. Using the restoration project to teach and let people get their hands on some tools and to directly connect with their heritage.
Great. So Swiftsure, again, that's where we're hosting this from. And we'd love to have you come down and join us on board once COVID lets us do that. And as her restoration progresses, I think you'll all be impressed by the great work that we're doing to put her back together. And if you'd like to support that work, you know, bid on another auction item, take a drink and just make a donation. We'd love your support. Another vessel in our fleet, the newest vessel in our fleet, she was only built in 1911, is the halibut schooner Tordenskjold, which was built right here in Ballard, fished up in Alaska for halibut and a number of other, different types of fishing for over 100 years. And she was actually actively fishing in Alaska right before she was given to Northwest Seaport. And now she's able to get underway and represent Northwest Seaport at maritime festivals around Puget Sound. And we also host scout troops on board as they're passing through and they want to get a little different experience than spending the night out in the woods or wherever else they might be. So here's a little bit more about the Tordenskjold, the youngest vessel in the Northwest Seaport fleet.
Tordenskjold is a member of what we believe is the world's oldest active fishing fleet. This boat is a halibut schooner, and that is a unique vessel type developed in this part of the world, the Pacific Northwest. And there was a fleet of these boats designed specifically to fish for the world's largest flatfish, the halibut. Most of these vessels are either over 100 years old or approaching their 100th birthdays, and most of them are still fishing.
Northwest Seaport has added Tordenskjold to its historic fleet to represent our commercial fishing industry and the wooden shipbuilding industry that produced that, and tell that story. It's a great story of sustainability, where our food comes from, about our maritime past, our maritime present and future. It's an important tale.
The Seattle halibut fleet were all built between 1911 and the 1920s, and the tortoiseshell being the oldest one that's still in existence. In those days, they were fishing with dories. They'd carry 6 dories aboard, which were 16-foot skiffs. So this was a really dangerous fishery because you're out in the high seas in 16-foot boats. Dory fishing was basically outlawed in the 1930s because it was so dangerous, and they developed technology to haul and set from the schooner itself. The change from dories to being able to haul on deck is, a tremendous improvement. And the gear is a traditional longline gear, and the gear is anchored to the bottom.
This boat has actually participated in every major fishery on the West Coast except for salmon. During World War II, her service was especially noteworthy when they fished for sharks. They were using the livers from sharks to process certain vitamins that they believed would help with night vision for airmen and sailors.
In 1979, the boat's third owner, Marvin Jurdy, purchased the vessel along with his business partner, Per Odegaard, and they fished halibut and black cod with this boat until 2012, which was Tordenskjold's last fishing season. And Marvin Jurdy decided Northwest Seaport was the place to go, and it's just been a great gift to the community.
I'd like it if in 50 years, this boat could be in as good a shape as it's in right now. And I just felt that giving it to the Seaport was the easiest way to accomplish that.
We acquired the Tordenskjold in 2017 to represent the fishing industry. Now we have an operational vessel that we can take the public out on for educational programs, boat shows, and just to show the flag.
This boat is operational, and we need a crew. So we are putting together a volunteer crew to operate this boat. And it's a great opportunity for people to get to be a part of something so big, something that's been around for so long, be part of this 100-year story, and these vessels and the whole history they represent.
So that's the Tordenskjold, the youngest vessel in our fleet, and a great asset to us. She has strong links to the fishing industry here in Seattle, which is a major industry. The Fisherman's Terminal in Seattle is home to the Alaska fleet, where most of the fish in this country are caught in Alaska. And it's a sustainable harvest. Sustainable seafood is a core element of our maritime industry, and the economic benefits that come from having a strong maritime industry. And we're so proud of the Tordenskjold and the support that we get from the fishing industry. So one of the things I'd like to point out to you, we're on a 1904 ship. This is the original binnacle that was on the ship. There used to be a compass inside there, big steel balls on either side to true the compass to make sure she was always pointed to the true north. Now she's a donation bucket, and since you can't come up and put anything in here, we ask you to go through the auction items and see which one interests you and place your next bid as we progress through the evening. Now I'm the board president, but I've got a great board that I work with, and I'd like to introduce a couple of the other board members right now. Megan Sturrock is our board treasurer, and Colleen Brown is our secretary. And here are their stories.
Oh, hey there. Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Megan Sturrock and I'm the treasurer for Northwest Seaport. I come to the board with a professional background in corporate accounting and finance. Prior to joining the board, I worked with Northwest Seaport for several years as a volunteer. As a native of the Seattle area, it is extremely important to me that the region's maritime history be preserved, as it has played a vital role in what the city has become and will be. The vessels that Northwest Seaport maintain are paramount to ensuring this important narrative continues. I look forward to working with all of you to ensure these amazing ships are preserved for future generations. Thank you for your continued support of Northwest Seaport.
Hi, I'm Colleen Brown, and I am a board member of Northwest Seaport. I currently serve as secretary. I've always been a history buff. I moved to Seattle mid-high school, first found out about old ships on Lake Union, especially the steamship Virginia 5, on which I tried to arrange an after-prom all-night party, kiboshed by the nuns. And then I discovered the Center for Wooden Boats, and then the Fireboat Duwamish, and finally 20 years ago, I discovered Northwest Seaport. Volunteers there were such an industrious and dedicated bunch of people, they really intrigued me. During the Historic Ships Wharf project, I was able to reacquaint myself with all of these wonderful separate nonprofits. You'll have dedicated staffs and volunteers who operate from the historic ship's wharf in Lake Union Park. Together with Mohai, we are a hidden nugget of history nestled right here in the heart of Seattle. 10 years ago, I joined the Northwest Seaport Board. Being able to be part of this wonderful nonprofit has been fun, rewarding, and a great learning experience. It's a deeper dive into history, both of historic ships and maritime business in Seattle. It helps root me in my adopted city. It's great fun for my grandchildren and their parents too. In normal times, we have events like Tugboat Happy Hour to eat, drink, and be merry and watch the wonderful Duck Dodge sailboat race, also a unique Seattle event, or open ships on weekends, or Tugboat Story Time, when you see people going all over the ships, all along the wharf, being able to touch everything, ring bells, listen to the largest diesel engine roar, hear the Virginia Fives whistle blow, or learn sailing from CWB, and this place comes alive. It's just a great place to be, where you can meet old friends, make new ones, or sit alone and contemplate nature. In the meantime, sit back and relax and enjoy our virtual gala. Cheers. Here's hoping we can see you aboard next year.
So that's Colleen and Megan, who help keep our books together and keep the records straight. It's great having someone like Megan on our board with a strong financial background. She keeps us on our toes financially, makes sure everything is accounted for and taken care of from a financial basis. And she will make sure that every penny that you give us tonight goes to the causes and the projects that really need the most work. And so she has been a great asset to our board since she joined. Colleen keeps us in line, keeps our records together. And it's also worth noting, very much so, that Colleen is kind of the horsepower behind what you're seeing tonight. She also runs our Tugboat Happy Hours and a lot of our other social programs. So thanks to Colleen, we have a much greater presence than we might otherwise. So I really appreciate having Megan and Colleen on the board, helping keep this organization and all of our programs and all of our vessels going forward. We've got a larger board than just that. We've got a couple other members who would like to tell you a little bit about their involvement with Northwest Seaport, why they're involved, and some of the things that they're interested in and where they come from on this. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to Phil Cole and Megan Mueller.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're at. My name is Philip Cole. I'm one of the newer members of the Northwest Seaport Board. I joined the organization about 10 years ago, it seems, as a volunteer with the organization, working on the boats. This right here is Arthur's main engine, and this is what really got me interested in coming down and volunteering. As a board member, one of my priorities is to ensure that these vessels are properly taken care of and preserved for future generations. A few years ago, we had an issue with the main engine. The oil pump broke, which is something that's actually a common occurrence on this type of engine. We had a great outpouring of support from the maritime community, and we've gotten the castings, phosphor bronze, raised back together. So this, within the next few months, should be back in position, and the engine should be back online. This is just one of the many projects that we have going on with the Seaport. Right now, Arthur's sponson guard is being repaired by our shipwright, Brian Johnson. But, you know, in amongst all the larger projects, there's always smaller projects that need doing as well. There's always leaks that you can find in old boats, and so you need to take care of them, make sure that they're taken care of, and that they don't grow and spread. There's always painting, there's always cleaning, there's always something for us to do down here. Here's another one. Of course, not everything that has to be done on an old boat is down in the engine room. Everything needs work all the time, and unfortunately, everything takes money. And so that's why I'm really glad that you're all here today and helping to fundraise for the organization. You know, it's not just what needs to be done on the boats that takes money. It's paying wages for employees. It's funding people writing grants. There's a lot more to running an organization than just the actual physical work on the boat. That is predominantly the hardest thing to fundraise for. And so I appreciate you being willing to help out with that. So a little bit about me, because all the other board members are saying stuff about themselves. Right now, I'm a real estate appraiser. Before that, I was an industrial mechanic, which is where I developed a lot of the skill set for working on these old boats. But ultimately, it backtracks to when I was a young kid, and I spent time on the Wawona, which also my wife did the same thing, and she got into the organization through the sea shanty side, back when the shanties were held on the Wawona. And I would really like to work on incorporating various different aspects of the organization back together so that we can develop a more holistic approach to saving and preserving the maritime heritage of the Puget Sound region. So again, thank you for your time. Thank you for your donations. If you haven't donated yet, what you waiting for?
I'm Megan Mueller-Waters. I have been with Northwest Seaport on the board for just over 2 years now, and I am a 5-year resident of Seattle. And as I've gotten to know this city better, my adopted home, I've gotten to learn so much about the maritime history of Seattle and how inherent that is to the city that I love so much now. And when you look at the boats that we have at Northwest Seaport, they are really, you can't think about the history of Seattle without including these boats, without including the Arthur Foss tug, without including the Torgensholt fishing vessel, the kind that are endemic to the Fisherman's Terminal and still being used to go out and fish as part of our vibrant fishing industry here in Seattle. And so for me, knowing about this city and knowing about the history of it, and where we're going, you can't figure that out without knowing where you're from. And part of me loving Seattle and being a boater myself is understanding our history and helping other new transplants understand it as well. We appreciate your support in helping keep our boats engaging with the community, and anything you can spare will help us keep these boats on the water.
So that's a couple more of our board members. Their passion for these boats, their passion for the maritime industry, and their passion for the mission of Northwest Seaport really helps us move forward and it keeps us engaged and helps us engage with all of you. So thank you, Phil and Megan, for your service and for your contributions to Northwest Seaport. Now the silent auction is underway, and one thing to note is that the Seafair Pirates, in the afternoon with the Seafair Pirates, you can ride on the boat with them in a parade, you and a couple of friends. It's a tremendous Seattle tradition, and it would be a blast to do something like that. It's really some authentic Seattle. It's not something that you're going to see anywhere else. So that's still available. It's looking for its first bid. So if you're interested in hanging out with some pirates, I assume they drink a little bit, and they do curse a little bit, so you got to be ready for that. But that's a great auction item, and hopefully someone will take that and have some fun with the pirates. So speaking of traditions in Seattle, the maritime industry is what created Seattle. Its presence here on Puget Sound, its access to the ocean, the protected harbor. The maritime industry is why Seattle is here, and it's what keeps Seattle great. You know, it's still one of the few cities where we've got a tremendous maritime industry right next to downtown. We've still got shipyards in Seattle. We've still got ports in Seattle. As I mentioned before, we've got the home of the Alaska fishing fleet right here at Fisherman's Terminal. All of that provides tremendous economic benefit to the region, to everyone who lives here, and it's something that we need to protect going forward and keep it strong, which is why we support so many education programs and do so much to engage young people and other people wanting to get into a good family wage career. We help that, and we help the maritime industry with that. And in turn, the maritime industry helps us. It's a great relationship, and we just love the maritime industry. I myself have been, I tell people I've been on the working waterfront since I was 4, when my dad ran a marina that had a little boat yard and a salvage operation. became a naval architect. I've worked for shipyards all over the country and in Canada. Worked on projects over in Europe and Mexico, but I just keep coming back to the maritime industry here in Seattle. Is such a tremendous opportunity for all of us, and we really need to protect the history so people remember where we come from, and protect the maritime industry going forward so that it continues to be the economic driver of Seattle and Seattle's economy. So one piece of our Northwest Seaport that has been a part of the maritime industry of Seattle almost since the beginning is the tugboat Arthur Foss. She was built in 1889, so she's way older than anyone watching this Zoom call, and she's been active up and down the coast. She served in World War II. She was the last vessel to leave Wake Island before the Japanese invasion. One of the other tugs that was there with her did not get out, and that crew spent the war as prisoners of war. She's just been up and down the coast, part of the Alaska Gold Rush, everywhere. And so we've got a little video here to share with you, a little more history about the past and present for the Arthur Foss.
Tugboats are important to the maritime history of the Pacific Northwest because they are the workboats, they are the guts, they are the icons of our maritime history.
Take it still, be found.
The Arthur Foss is really the quintessential tugboat of the Pacific Northwest. Coming aboard, it's a chance to get on board a tugboat, which you can't do anywhere else.
The Arthur Foss is an 1889 wooden tugboat built in Portland, Oregon, and then basically spent most of its history in Washington State. We think it's the oldest operating wooden tug in the United States. It's got an amazing history.
It was involved in the Alaska Gold Rush. It was involved in World War II. It was a movie star for a short time.
Well, the 1933 Tugboat Annie film was produced right here in Lake Union, and so it was a very important film based upon the short stories in the Saturday Evening Post.
The stories of this gregarious woman who was a captain of a tugboat in Puget Sound in the mythical city of Tacoma.
It also was involved in World War II. It was the last ship to make it out of Wake Island when the Japanese invaded Pearl Harbor.
After the war, it came back to Tacoma, towing log rafts and log cribs from the log dumps on the Straits of Juan de Fuca.
We called her the Grand Old Lady back when I was a kid. During the summer, you couldn't get on the Art because all of the old-timers wanted on the Art.
The Arthur was decommissioned in Tacoma in the fall of 1968, and in early 1970, it was decided that the Arthur was still a valuable piece of Northwest history.
She was acquired by Save Our Ships, which was the precursor organization to Northwest Seaport. She's been a member of the Northwest Seaport fleet for over 30 years now, stationed here at the historic ship wharf, and is an icon for many visitors to South Lake Union.
It's really the most difficult type of museum artifact to take care of because it's exposed to the weather all the time. So our volunteers are on here all the time taking care of the equipment and taking care of the woodwork and trying to get it sealed up and keep the weather and the elements from getting at it. The main thing is to keep it here and keep it functioning and keep it alive. Keep the machinery going, keep the smells coming out of the galley stove, and keep it a living place in a center where people congregate to learn about the past, learn about themselves, learn about skills, and keep the vessel going.
Great. So that is a little bit more about the Arthur Foss, the grand dame of our fleet. As I mentioned, and you've just heard, she's the oldest wooden tug in the world, still afloat, and she's right here in Seattle at the historic ship's wharf at Lake Union Park. We can't wait to have you come back aboard, join us for happy hours, join us for tugboat story times. Just come down and join us anytime. And if you want to have an event on board, we still have the auction item of a catered barbecue on the Arthur Foss for you and a bunch of friends. Some of the other items that we've got available that we'd love to see a little bit more bidding on is the Lake Union tour on an electric boat, which is me. I'll take you out and show you around the lake. I don't have a script, just like you can probably tell. I don't have a script tonight, but I've got a lot of stories to tell, and I'd love to share that with you. So hopefully we'll see a little more bidding on both of those items. And with that, you know, we get to the part of this evening and of most galas these days where we just ask you to make a donation. You've heard about these great ships. You've met some of our board members. We've talked to you about our programs, the impact we've had. I mean, before COVID was happening, we had sent 9 people who had gotten their training on board the Arthur Foss into the engineering group at Washington State Ferries. And we continue to help other people get into the maritime industry, which needs people. And so that's something that we're doing. That's something that you can support. Phil mentioned we're trying to get the engine on the Arthur Foss started again. That's something that you can support. We want to get the Tordenskjold underway and get her out to festivals and wave the Northwest Seaport banner around Puget Sound. That's something else that you can support. So with that, we're asking for your support. And I'm going to have another toast to you and your support and all the great things that we can do with that support. Here's to you. Thank you for your support. Now, while you're trying to figure out the technology of how to make that donation, it's not hard. It's right there. But while you're doing that, we've got another song from Jacqueline Tabor to keep you entertained and hopefully encourage you to go to the next higher level. Thank you, and here's Jacqueline.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Night and day, you are the one. Only you beneath the moon or under the sun. Whether near to me or far, no matter, darling, where you are, I think of you night and day and night. Why is it so that this torment follows me wherever I go? In the roaring traffic boom, in the silence of my lonely room, I think of you night and day and night. Over the heart of me, there's such a hungry yearning inside of me, and this torment won't be through till you let my heart make love to you. I think of you night and day. Day and night, oh, under the heart of me, there's such a hungry yearning inside of me, and this torment won't be through till you let my heart make love to you. I think of you, oh, I think of you night and day.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for sharing that with us. It's such an honor to have such a great talent supporting Northwest Seaport. Well, that brings us to the end of the regular program. I want to thank Joe and Barbara Shickich again for their generous donation of matching dollar for dollar up to the first $10,000 that we get tonight. We hope to use every penny of that we get, and we will use it all on programs that benefit the maritime community and the Seattle community in general. Thank you all for your participation. I hope that you're warmer than I am. And with that, I will say good night and thank you for all of your support.